It's your boy Charles. Charles on there as well, just checking in. Hope you guys having a good evening. We are getting ready to delve into another book audio reaction. Let's go ahead and play it, and I'm gonna come back with my reaction. Appreciate it, guys.
This video is for commentary purposes only. Hit that subscribe button and enjoy this crazy story. If you're interested in this particularly read, be sure to purchase it on Audible.
Butterfly in the sky,
I can go twice as high.
take a look, it's in a book, a reading rainbow. I can go anywhere, friends to know and ways to grow, a reading rainbow. I can be anything, take a look, it's in a book, a reading rainbow, reading rainbow, reading rainbow, reading rainbow.
Well. Look what the cat drugged in. Ha ha ha. I'm just joking. Go sit your ass down and let a homie tell you a tale. A tale coming straight from the west side. Los Angeles. Tonight we are taking a look at the most infamous and controversial record label in history. Death Row Records. In the book Labyrinth, written by Randall Sullivan, we are introduced to a world of money, greed, music, gangs and a lot of other gangster shit in 90s Los Angeles. So sit back, relax and enjoy this hip-hop gangster tale. If you want to purchase this audiobook, go to Audible to purchase. Don't forget to hit the thumbs up button, my reading rainbow children.
Prosecute because they knew if they charged Suge Knight, he would accuse them of racism. They figured this was all some kind of black shit that they didn't want to get involved with. Mark Anthony Bell eventually filed a civil suit against Suge Knight and Death Row Records and received a reported settlement of $600,000. He moved to Jamaica after collecting the money and had been lying low ever since. To Poole, the only thing more amazing than the DA's refusal to file charges was the fact that Suge Knight would expose himself to criminal prosecution in such a public way, especially given his legal situation at the time. 10 months earlier, in February of 1995, Suge finally had been forced to plead guilty to the felony assault of George and Linwood Stanley at Solar Records in July of 1992. Given his criminal history, it looked as if prison time was inevitable. If Suge Knight had learned anything, however, it was that almost any problem went away when you threw enough money at it. Person after person praised Knight to Judge John Ouderkirk and pleaded with the jurist to keep him out of prison. Among those offering testimonials were the Stanley brothers, who recently had signed a $1 million contract with Death Row Records, a deal negotiated, of course, by David Kenner. Also speaking on Suge's behalf was the deputy district attorney assigned to prosecute him, Lawrence Longo, who observed that Mr. Knight had become head of one of the largest record companies in the country and employed numerous residents of Los Angeles County, then recommended a 9-year suspended sentence with 5 years of probation. Judge Ouderkirk, who did not know that a few months later Longo's 18-year-old daughter, Gina, was going to become the first white singer signed to a recording contract with Death Row Records, or that a few months after this, Suge Knight would move into Longo's Malibu colony home, or that David Kenner would pay the prosecutor's family $19,000 in rent each month for the use of that property, went along with the deal. Any violation of his probation, including association with convicted felons, would send him to prison, but in the meantime, all Suge owed the state was 1 month in a halfway house. 30 days later, Knight was back in his Encino mansion, ready to begin the pursuit of his biggest coup to date, a Death Row Records contract with rap's brightest star, Tupac Shakur. Tupac was in New York State's Dannemora prison during the summer of 1995, serving a sentence of 52 months for a sexual assault conviction. During the past 4 years, he'd been arrested 8 times, narrowly avoiding conviction in the 1993 shooting of 2 off-duty Atlanta police officers, and barely escaping death when he was shot 5 times in the lobby of the Quad Studios, just off New York's Times Square. Despite recording 3 hugely successful albums during this period, Shakur was broke and desperate. Suge Knight recognized an opportunity. Immediately after his release from the halfway house in Los Angeles, Suge began making a series of trips to Dannemora that lasted all through that spring and into summer. Eventually, he persuaded Shakur that if the rapper agreed to join Death Row's roster, he would be out of custody in short order. 1 week after Tupac signed a 3-page agreement handwritten by David Kenner, the New York Court of Appeals announced that it was releasing Shakur from prison on $1.4 million bail. Interscope put up the money, and when Shakur walked out of Dannemora, Knight and Kenner were waiting outside in a white stretch limousine. Suge and Tupac appeared to be flying high and in tandem during the next 12 months. Attacks on gangsta rap by William Bennett and C. Dolores Tucker rattled Interscope's corporate masters at Time Warner, but executive anxiety was considerably eased when Shakur's first album for Death Row, All Eyes on Me, released in February 1996, sold 3 million copies. Knight draped his stars in luscious groupies and ruby-studded jewelry, achieving an acme of in-house success when Death Row celebrated Snoop Dogg's acquittal on murder charges with the purchase of 4 Rolls-Royces. Both Death Row and Suge Knight were about to experience a rapid reversal of fortune, however, and Tupac Shakur, all of 25, had only a few months left to live. During her 1971 pregnancy, Afeni Shakur was standing trial as a member of the Panther 21, a group accused of conspiring to blow up several New York department stores. She named her son Tupac, Afeni Shakur liked to tell people.
Looking for a professional photographer for your next big event? Need video of your special day? Then look no further. For $100 an hour, have a professional photographer or videographer shoot your wedding, birthday party, quinceañera, bar mitzvah or bat mitzvah, anniversary party, or whatever your special occasion may be. Highlight your event with professional, crisp photos and video. Check out Charles Arness Photography on Instagram, as well as book us for your next event. Must live in the Southern California area.
For the last Inca chief to be murdered by the Spanish conquistadors. Tupac's mother had been born Alice Faye Williams. She was a farm girl from North Carolina who took her new name after moving to Brooklyn and starting an affair with one of Malcolm X's bodyguards. Chants of black power were like a lullaby when I was a kid, Tupac himself once said. Her acquittal in the Panther 21 trial gave Afeni Shakur a short-lived celebrity in the early 70s. While living in a subsidized apartment in Manhattan near Columbia University, she lectured at Harvard and Yale. Her only son was called the Black Prince and forecast as the future leader of the revolution. By the late 70s, though, as the epoch of radical chic passed, Afeni and her son were reduced to living on welfare in the South Bronx, while many adult members of Tupac's Black Panther family were either behind bars or on the run. Tupac's godfather, Elmer Geronimo Pratt, was convicted in 1968 of murdering a school teacher during a robbery in Santa Monica and sentenced to life in prison. The boy's aunt, Assata Shakur, Joanne Chesimard, was found guilty in 1977 of murdering a New Jersey state trooper, though she did manage to break out of prison 2 years later and flee to Cuba. Tupac's stepfather, Mutulu Shakur, was found guilty of conspiring in that prison escape, as well as in the attempted robbery of a Brinks armored car in which 2 police officers and a guard were killed. Tupac was never certain about his father's identity. Afeni had been married to Black Panther activist Lumumba Shakur when she became pregnant, but told her son that his father was either a Harlem drug dealer who answered to Legs or another Panther Party member, Billy Garland. Garland claimed paternity, but Tupac reaped little benefit from this. He rarely saw the man, who never amounted to much anyway. Garland was a far better choice than Legs, however, who re-entered Tupac's life when the boy was about 12 and stayed around just long enough to turn Afeni into a crack addict. Afeni and her 2 children, Tupac had a younger sister named Sekiwa, moved to Baltimore in 1984 when Legs was arrested for credit card fraud. The man died of a drug-induced heart attack a short time later. Legs' death fucked Tupac up, Afeni once told an interviewer. It was 3 months before he cried. After he did, he told me, "I miss my daddy." "I remember crying all the time," Tupac told an interviewer about his early childhood. "My major thing growing up was that I just couldn't fit in." Baltimore would be good to the boy, though. His mother enrolled him in the city's School for the Arts, where he studied ballet, poetry, jazz, and acting. He performed in Shakespearean plays and played the Mouse King in The Nutcracker. The teenager who had been teased about his slight build and effeminate features in New York would say that he finally felt in touch with himself during his time at the School for the Arts. "I was starting to feel like I really wanted to be an artist," Tupac explained. "I was fucking white girls." The idyll ended when Tupac moved to California in 1988 to escape the squalor and poverty of a home where his mother smoked a crack pipe, all during her 3rd pregnancy. His new residence was in Marin City, an isolated ghetto in a geographic depression surrounded by rolling hills where white people with money had created a quasi-rustic suburbia. He didn't fit in with the black kids he met in California, Tupac said. "I dressed like a hippie. I couldn't play basketball. I was the target for street gangs. They used to jump me. I thought I was weird because I was writing poetry and I hated myself. I used to keep it a secret. I was really a nerd." Tupac's self-esteem was considerably enhanced in 1990, however, when he got a job as a dancer with the rap group Digital Underground. Only 1 year later, executives at Interscope heard a demo tape Tupac had made and signed him to a recording contract of his own. The young rapper's 1991 album, Tupacalypse Now, sold 500,000 copies, thanks in part to Vice President Dan Quayle, who declared that Tupac's tales of young black men in pitched battle with the pigs who invaded their neighborhoods had no place in our society. Tupac had started a film career that same year, landing a part in Juice, even before his first album was recorded. When he moved to Los Angeles in 1992, however, Shakur immediately became absorbed in the gang culture of Crips and Bloods. In part, he was doing what artists and writers always do, sponging up stories, characters, and attitudes he could use in his songs. The young men who controlled the streets of Compton and South Central LA, however, placed an unusually high premium on authenticity. The only options they gave anyone, even visiting rap stars, were hard or soft, gangsta or punk. Either have the heart of a killer or expect to be treated like any other sucker. Fair game for anyone who was bad enough to take the watch off your wrist or the money from your pocket. At 5'8" and 150 pounds, with fine, soft features and eyes that just wouldn't go dead, Tupac scared absolutely nobody. At least, not until he bought his first pistol and began practicing with it at local firing ranges. He started lifting weights, too, and began to cover his torso with tattoos. The most famous being the huge letters that spelled out "Thug Life" across his solar plexus, with the image of an assault rifle etched into his flesh above it. Tupac's first major brush with the law made headlines that summer, when he went home to attend the celebration of Marin City's 50th anniversary and got into a shouting match with some young men from the neighborhood that did not end until shots were fired and a 6-year-old boy was killed by a bullet to the head. Tupac's half-brother was arrested for murder, only to be released because of insufficient evidence. But all that most people remembered were headlines with the name Shakur in them. Back in LA, Tupac kept even the gangbangers guessing. When he wore red on the cover of his second album, 1993's Strictly For My Niggas, word spread that he had joined the Bloods. But soon after, he posed for pictures with a blue bandana on his head. During a drive to the Fox lot in Hollywood, where he was to tape a segment for In Living Color, Tupac pulled a gun on a limo driver who had asked him not to smoke pot in the vehicle, then looked on as the members of his entourage beat the man senseless. He played opposite Janet Jackson in his second movie, Poetic Justice, that summer, then on Halloween got into a shootout with 2 off-duty white police officers in Atlanta, wounding one man in his abdomen and the other in his buttocks. charges of aggravated assault were dropped only when it came out that the cops Tupac had shot were a pair of drunken yahoos who had started things by brandishing a pistol stolen from a precinct evidence room, and that on the day of Tupac's first court hearing, one of them had been charged with aggravated assault, while both were accused of using the word niggers in a police report. The attendant publicity made Tupac simultaneously a media villain and a ghetto champion. By November of 1993, when he moved to New York for the filming of Above the Rim, Tupac's legal expenses had mounted to the point that he began telling people he had to change his life and clean up his act or declare bankruptcy. Smelling blood in the water, Suge Knight made his first overture to Tupac, paying $200,000 for a single song, Pour Out a Little Liquor. When Knight offered a long-term recording contract, however, Tupac turned Suge down, choosing to align himself instead with music promoter Jacques Agnon, better known as Haitian Jack. The rapper's bad press, meanwhile, continued to mount. He was the target of civil suits that blamed his lyrics for the shooting of a Texas state trooper and the paralysis of a young woman who was hit by a stray bullet during a near riot at one of his concerts in Arkansas. The headlines were louder still when, shortly before Thanksgiving, Tupac was arrested for the sexual assault that would send him to Dannemora. What had happened would never be clear, largely because the victim was a young woman whose own behavior inspired neither trust nor sympathy. Tupac claimed he first encountered Ayanna Jackson when she approached him on the dance floor of the downtown Manhattan nightclub, Nell's, unzipped his pants, and led him by the penis to a dark corner of the club where she performed oral sex on him. Jackson insisted that Tupac had chased her all over the club before a brief and furtive encounter in which he pushed my head down on his penis in a brief 3-second encounter. Whatever, the young woman not only slept with Shakur that night, but showed up 4 days later at Tupac's suite in the Parker Meridian, wearing a tight dress and within minutes was giving him a massage in the bedroom. The two soon were joined by Jacques Agnon and a friend of the promoters. Tupac and the other two men claimed Jackson was a willing participant in group sex. The young woman said she was the victim of a gang rape. 1 year later, a New York jury would essentially split the difference, but in the meantime, Tupac was attending to other troubles. On February 1st, 1994, Tupac was in Los Angeles Municipal Court to answer assault charges filed against him by film director Allen Hughes, who, along with his partner brother Albert, had tried to cast Tupac in the film Menace to Society.
Wow. So what do y'all think about that, man? The book is called Labyrinth. You can go right now on Audible and purchase it. Check it out yourself, man. It's actually really good. Homeboy gets really in depth about Tupac. And man, I couldn't believe Tupac was a nerd. Huh? Who would have thought? But I mean, come on, he was into poetry. I guess that some would say that that's nerdy behavior. He was into poetry and literature and stuff like that. But yeah, I never would think that Tupac had that kind of low self-esteem and thought he was like an outcast, you know. But you know, I think he did say that in one of his songs, though, you know. I forgot how the song went, and it was like resulting in the outcast and the outlaw. I forgot how the song went, but wow. But yeah, check out Labyrinth. It's on Audible. It gets into really good detail about the Tupac and Biggie murder, and it also goes in depth about Death Row Records in LA and Bad Boy in New York, and just different stuff that I didn't even know about when it comes to Tupac. And this is my era. Stuff I didn't know about that dealt with Tupac and Notorious Big. So anyway, check that book out, guys. Thanks for watching. Hit that thumbs up button. Let me know what y'all think about what y'all just heard. Let me know if y'all read this book or heard or already listened to the book on Audible. And let me know what y'all think about it in the comments. Subscribe to Charles in This World. Y'all take care.
Enjoying this shit so far? Then hit that thumbs up button.
more of these fascinating stories and true crimes, subscribe to Charles Arnis World. Thanks for watching.